The wagon wheels had stopped turning 3 days ago, but the smoke still rose from the charred wood like prayers to a deaf sky. Ayana moved through the morning mist on silent feet, her buckskin dress catching dewdrops that rolled down like tears. She'd watched the white settlers' fires from the ridge for weeks, counting their numbers, memorizing their routines. Now there was only silence and ash. She should have turned back. Her people would call her foolish for venturing so close to the iron road, where cavalry patrols rode like thunder across the plains. But something had drawn her down from the high country, a sound that didn't belong to wind or bird or dying ember. The first body lay twisted beside the wagon's front wheel, a woman with golden hair spread across the dirt like spilled grain. Ayana knelt, touching the cold forehead with 2 fingers, whispering the old words that helped spirits find their way home. The man nearby had died reaching for his rifle, fingers still curled around empty air. Then she heard it again, that sound that had pulled her from safety. A cry, thin and desperate, coming from beneath the wagon's burned canvas. Her heart hammered as she pulled away the smoking cloth. In a wooden crate wrapped in a quilt that somehow escaped the flames, a baby wailed with the fury of something that refused to die. His eyes were blue as winter sky, his hair the color of prairie grass. Blood from a small cut marked his forehead, but he was alive, impossibly, defiantly alive. Ayana lifted him carefully, and the crying stopped. He stared at her with those impossible eyes, one tiny fist reaching toward her face. In the distance she could hear hoofbeats, cavalry, maybe, or raiders coming back to pick the bones clean. She had moments to decide. The baby made a soft sound, not quite a laugh, and wrapped his fingers around a strand of her black hair. In that touch she felt something she hadn't experienced since her own son died of winter fever 2 years ago. Purpose. The hoofbeats grew louder. Ayana pressed the child against her chest and ran. For 7 suns Ayana kept the baby hidden in a cave high above the river, feeding him water mixed with wild honey, singing the old lullabies her grandmother had taught her. She told herself she was waiting for the right moment to take him to the fort, to find his people. But each morning, as those blue eyes found her face and trusted her completely, the lie grew harder to believe. When she finally descended to her village, carrying the child wrapped in deer hide, the reaction was swift and harsh. "You bring death among us," said Tachi, the war chief, his scarred face twisted with disgust. "White man's blood carries white man's curse." Old woman Nayeli spat in the dirt. "The cavalry will come looking. They always do. You doom us all for one pale child." But Ayana's sister Iti stepped forward and touched the baby's cheek with wonder. "Look how he reaches for her. The spirits have chosen. The spirits chose war when the blue coats drove us from our sacred places," Tachi growled. "This child will grow to betray us as all whites do. Kill it now before attachment makes you weak." Ayana felt the baby's small fist close around her finger. "His name will be Kohana," she said quietly. "Little wolf. He is mine now." The silence stretched taut as a bowstring. Finally Chief Mokama spoke from his place by the fire. "If you claim him, sister, you claim all that comes with him. His people's hatred, their fear, their bullets when they learn what you have done." "I claim him," Ayana whispered. That night riders approached from the east, 3 cavalry scouts with questions about missing settlers. Ayana held Kohana close in her tipi, covering his mouth with her hand when he started to fuss. Through the hide walls she heard voices. "Comanches in the area. Burned wagon. Any survivors?" Tachi's voice was stone. "We know nothing of white wagons." The baby whimpered against her palm. One sound and they would all die. But Kohana looked up at her with absolute trust, and somehow stayed silent. The riders left with dawn, but their threat lingered like smoke. 2 seasons passed before the real trouble came. Kohana had grown strong on mare's milk and mashed buffalo meat, his blue eyes bright with mischief as he crawled through the camp, babbling in Comanche words. The women had grown fond of him despite themselves, and even some of the warriors smiled when he tried to mount the camp dogs like ponies. But peace never lasted long in these lands. The dust cloud appeared on the southern horizon like a brown storm, and experienced eyes counted at least 20 riders. Not cavalry this time, worse. Buffalo hunters, those grim men who killed for sport and took scalps for proof. They'd been tracking the band for days, following the trail of dried meat and traverse marks. They know, Tachi said, checking his rifle. Someone told them about the white child. Ayana's blood turned to ice water. Who would? Does it matter? Chief Mokama's voice was weary. They come for blood and gold. The child gives them excuse. Through her tippy flap, Ayana watched the hunters arrange themselves in a wide semicircle, just beyond rifle range. Their leader sat his horse like a patient death, a man with a grey beard and eyes like winter ice. She recognized him from whispered stories around night fires. Jack Torion, who collected bounties on Indian scalps, and asked no questions about the ages of the dead. Send out the white boy. Torion's voice carried across the grass like a curse. Send him out and we ride away peaceful. Chief Mokama stepped forward. There is no white child here. Torion laughed, a sound like breaking glass. My tracker says different. Says you got yourselves a little blue-eyed treasure. The army's offering good money for information about the missing settlers. Kohana crawled to Ayana's feet, pulling himself upright on her leggings. He pointed at the distant riders and made happy sounds, as if they were visitors bringing gifts. His innocent joy tore at her heart. 1 hour, Torion called. Then we come in shooting. Women and children too. That's what happens when you harbor white blood among savages. The hunters withdrew to wait, and the village erupted in desperate whispers. Some wanted to fight. Others demanded Ayana surrender the child to save their families. But as the sun climbed higher and Kohana played at her feet, Ayana knew what she had to do. Night fell like a heavy blanket, and with it came Ayana's chance. While the buffalo hunters dozed by their distant fire, confident that dawn would bring them victory, she wrapped Kohana in her warmest robes and crept from the village. She meant to run, to take him far into the Badlands where no tracker could follow. But as she reached the edge of camp, old Nayeli stepped from the shadows. I thought you might try this foolishness, the elder whispered. Ayana tensed, ready to fight even this grandmother who had helped birth her. But Nayeli held out a small leather pouch. My son's medicine bundle, she said. He died fighting the blue coats 10 winters ago. It will protect the little wolf on his journey. You would help me. Nayeli's weathered face softened. I have watched you with him, child. I see how he looks at you, the same way my son looked at me. Love knows no color of skin. She touched Kohana's sleeping face. But love sometimes means letting go. They walked together to the canyon's edge, where ancient pictographs told stories of hunts and battles long forgotten. Nayeli pulled out a piece of hide and began scratching symbols with a sharp stone. What are you doing? Making him a story, the old woman replied. So when he is grown and walks among his birth people, he will know where he came from, know that he was loved. Ayana felt tears burning her eyes as she watched Nayeli work. The symbols told of a terrible fire, of death and loss, of a Comanche woman who found a crying child and chose mercy over fear. At the bottom Nayeli drew 2 figures, a woman with long black hair and a boy with sun-colored hair, their hands joined. Keep this safe, Nayeli whispered, rolling the hide carefully. When the time comes, give it to him. Let him know his true story. Kohana stirred in Ayana's arms, making the soft sounds he always made when waking. His blue eyes found hers in the starlight, and he smiled, that perfect trusting smile that had haunted her dreams for months. In that moment, Ayana understood what love really meant, not keeping, but setting free. Dawn came gray and cold, bringing with it the sound of approaching hoofbeats. But instead of buffalo hunters, a different group crested the ridge, cavalry soldiers in blue coats, led by a young lieutenant with kind eyes and a careful manner. Ayana stood in the center of the village, holding Kohana against her chest. The buffalo hunters had vanished with the night, unwilling to face military justice for their bounty hunting ways. Ma'am, the lieutenant said, dismounting slowly. I'm Lieutenant Morrison.
Oh,
We've been searching for survivors from the Henderson wagon train. Kohana babbled and reached toward the soldiers, his bright hair catching morning light. Morrison's eyes widened with recognition and relief. Dear God, he breathed. Little Thomas Henderson. We thought the whole family was. His name is Kohana, Ayana said quietly. Little wolf. Morrison stepped closer, his hand resting on his sidearm. Ma'am, I appreciate what you've done, caring for him, but he needs to come with us now, back to his own people. The village watched in tense silence. One wrong word, and this could still end in blood. Ayana looked down at Kohana, at Thomas, one last time. He was playing with the medicine bundle Nayeli had given him, his small fingers tracing the beadwork with fascination.
oh,
When he looked up and saw her tears, his face crumpled with concern. Ma'am, he said clearly, his first real word, spoken in perfect Comanche. The sound merely broke her, but Ayana kissed his forehead and gently placed him in Lieutenant Morrison's arms. Take good care of him, she whispered. He is brave and strong. He will grow to be a good man. Morrison nodded, his own eyes suspiciously bright. What should I tell them? About how he survived? Ayana pulled out the hide scroll Nayeli had made, its symbols telling the truth they needed to remember. Tell them his story, she said. All of it. Night, 23 years later, a man with sun-colored hair and blue eyes stood at the edge of Comanche territory, wearing both cavalry uniform and beaded moccasins. Thomas Henderson had become a translator and peacekeeper, building bridges between two worlds that had shaped him. In his saddlebags, he carried a worn piece of hide covered in ancient symbols, and in his heart, he carried the memory of a woman who had chosen love over fear, mercy over hatred.
oh.
The prairie wind whispered through the grass, carrying with it the echo of old lullabies and the promise that some bonds transcend blood, transcend color, transcend time itself. In the distance, smoke rose from a Comanche fire, and Thomas urged his horse forward, finally coming home.